That was Payday Monsanto and the new Al-Qaeda. Yep, if we have a Ron Paul sticker, if we like to pick our nose in public, if we disagree with the government, we're terrorists. So welcome to the New World Order, folks. It's emerged today that Gaddafi's son, Colonel Gaddafi's son, Libyan leader, this is from Bloomberg, I believe, Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi's son, Saif al-Islam, has approached rebels to negotiate an exit from power for his father in the last few days, and aide to National Transitional Council leader Mahmoud Jibril said. Of course, he is trying to put some terms. We understand those terms and we know how to play the negotiations, told Bloomberg Television today in Abu Dhabi, where foreign ministers from the 22-nation Libya contact group met. We are talking now of the last stage of this operation. Gaddafi won't be allowed to remain in Libya. Presumably he'll have to ship out all his golf carts, even though he is dreaming of staying in the country. South Africa and Senegal are among the countries that might offer him a safe haven. He added. Australian Foreign Minister Kevin Rudd, globalist, said Gaddafi had sent out many feelers to negotiate an end to the conflict. The insurgency against Gaddafi's 4-decade rule began in February. NATO-led forces are fighting an air campaign in support of the rebels that intensified on June the 7th. The Libyan leader's isolation increased in recent weeks with a series of high-profile defections, including generals and 2 colonels. We're talking to Nile Bowie he's in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia at the moment. Are you still with us, Nile?
I'm still with you.
Yeah, I mean, South Africa and Senegal have offered Colonel Gaddafi a safe refuge, and of course his communist friend Chavez, who is not a great friend of the rest of the West, has also offered him refuge. He's probably basking in a cafe in Barcelona as we speak anyway, but I wanted to draw your attention to his a bit like Hitler, Tavistock created Hitler. I wanted to draw your attention to some of his history. Me being Irish, it was difficult growing up in England during the Irish bombing campaign because it was awkward going out with a bag before some Englishman would shout, "Hey, there's not a bomb in that bag." So all the pub bombings and terrorist campaigns in mainland England were attributed to the IRA, and how it turns out, recently declassified documents and whistleblowers, that the MI5 and MI6, more importantly, ran the IRA. That a mole came out and spoke that once you get to the top of the IRA, you're dealing with MI6 officials. So thanks for that. And who supplied the IRA with their weapons? Muammar Gaddafi. He was a strong supporter of Irish independence, you see. So is Muammar Gaddafi a globalist, a New World Order chap that's sort of getting a bit out of line, or is he playing the game of acting like he's been burnt? And how true is the stories of him blowing up and shooting his own people? Can we rely on that from CNN?
Yeah, all very, very good questions. I think a lot of these stories coming out about Gaddafi, I'm not going to vouch for the guy. He's not someone that I think is a perfect leader in many ways. Now, I think Gaddafi, he was compliant to some extent. He was compliant to some extent with institutions, such as the African Union and things like that. However, one of the reasons he's targeted first, not only for resources, however, he has his own vision of Pan-African globalization. He has his own vision for the United States of Africa. That's what he wanted to build.
Right. I mean, up to the late 70s, they were debt free. Libya was debt free. The last few countries to come under the umbrella of the banking cabal, because Islam doesn't allow usury. They need to, in the agenda for the 21st century. It's on record that they listed the countries they needed to go to: Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Iran, and Libya was mentioned too. So
yeah,
that's a lot.
Lebanon, Sudan, and Somalia. And I don't think those are places where we will see conflict bubbling up. And I've also read recently that covert airstrikes in Yemen are going on as well, which is equally disturbing. Now, just to go over a couple of the things before we went to break here, we were speaking about the Bilderberg Group, and I just have a quote here I want to read from David Rockefeller. Now, David Rockefeller said this at the 1991 Bilderberg meeting in Germany. So here's what he said. We're grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would be impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years. But the world is now more sophisticated and prepared to march towards a world government. The supernatural sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practiced in past centuries. That's David Rockefeller.
From the horse's mouth, yeah, it's a very well-known statement. And in his book, he said that people accuse me of being treasonous and wanting a world government, and on all charges I stand guilty as charged.
Exactly.
We know who these people are. The game is up.
Exactly.
I think, Brzezinski himself is sort of shaking, his voice is shaking when we say never before in history have the people been so awake. And they're stepping up this distraction. The people on the ground are suffering, you see. They're killing people.
Oh, yeah.
They're killing people in hospitals here. They're feeding us poisons in our water and our food. Always have done. They're stepping up what Rockefeller has called for a rapid depopulation. Meanwhile, they're blowing the crap out of civilians on the ground wherever they can. The globalists, the New World Order.
It's a neo-Malthusian view of the world that this at least
Thomas Malthus, yeah.
Anglo-American version of a new kind of international order is being organized in, and that's pretty much the same agenda in Asia as well. However, I just want to get back into a little bit of facts about Libya. A lot of people don't know.
Right.
That Libya is actually it is the most stable African country. It is the most stable. Now, Libya operates with a centrally planned economy in line with Gaddafi's philosophy of Islamic socialism. The economy depends on revenue from the petroleum sector, and it's important to note that Libya is the world's leading producer, among the world's leading producers of natural resources, oil, with 3.5 of the global oil reserves.
Right, I thought it was 3.5. Yeah.
Now, Libya has recorded very optimistic growth rates, and it actually boasts the highest nominal per capita GDP, up to 6,000 per year in Africa, which is obviously it's a hub for migration and things like that. There's a lot of migrant workers from sub-Saharan Africa that go to Libya, from Chad and places like that. Gaddafi was responsible for nationalizing the vast oil resources in the country, which were formerly British-owned. And he rationally invested those things in public services, production schools, university, medical centers, inland infrastructure. And Libya's state-owned National Oil Corporation is one of the 25 highest grossing oil companies, according to Associated Press. So destabilizing that company specifically is what's on the agenda as well. Now, a couple other things here. Before Gaddafi was in power, there was a monarch, King Idris, who was he's literally put on the throne by the former British government there. During his reign in 1969, fewer than 1 in 5 Libyans were actually literate. And under Gaddafi, Libya has an 83% literacy rate, which is the highest in Africa or the Middle East. And in Libya, you can get free education up to university level. It may be hard to believe. Libyans have access to free socialized health care, which includes doctors, hospitals, clinics, medicines, free of charge. Again, the quality of those services may be debatable, obviously, to other sort of more international standards. Actually, I think the hospitals in Asia are pristine. They completely blow the hospitals I've seen in the U.S.
You should see the hospitals in England. not pristine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the services there are debatable, but Libya has the highest standard of living in Africa and the longest life expectancy, according to the UN's own Human Development Index, which is ahead of Russia, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia. Gaddafi has overseen many projects, such as what he calls the Great Man-Made River, which is an elaborate pipeline system which funnels fresh water from beneath the Sahara into the northern population centers. I think he was one of the people who was really into the idea of water being the next oil, and really sustaining that and making smart decisions with that. Obviously, he's a tycoon in his own way, and the estimated cost for the infrastructure required for that pipeline system was $25 billion US, and Libya claims to have completed all the work to date without the financial aid of any lending institutions or any
Right.
other countries.
Well, that's key, isn't it? Because
Exactly.
Because in order to bring in this absolute new system that we're being brought into, the world system of the New World Order, they need every country to come under the banner of the World Bank, the IMF.
Exactly.
And
So
anyone who's doing well, if they can't change the regime, they'll bomb the crap out of it. It's tyranny. It's tyranny. It's global tyranny.
That's the definition of it. That's absolutely the smoking gun here. Why I think this whole thing has taken place, because many people have been taken off guard, and going into Libya was a surprise. A lot of people have told me, but actually, when you research it, you can see why it was the first place they hit. And actually, Alex Jones had said in the Obama deception film that Obama would be the president to launch military agenda in Africa.
I said at the time that he would be worse than Bush, if that's even imaginable, and it's turning out to be true.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
He's just another puppet carrying on the agenda. He's extended the Patriot Act. He's lied about everything in his campaign. This guy is the man of the moment. He's probably bred for the purpose. His parents were both CIA. We don't even know who he is, Mr. Barry Soetoro. We don't know where he comes from. The man is a sham, and he's a puppet salesman. But this guy is going to bring us to World War III.
Absolutely. And you know what's so sad as well? You know the way he captured, even though it was his story is completely exaggerated, like the son of a goat herder. I mean, come on, it's completely ridiculous. But the way he captured people and he gave people hope, and it's an amazing marketing campaign on his election and things like that. However, what he could have done, it's depressing to think about. This guy studied constitutional law. I mean, he obviously knows better, and it's such a sad thing. He could have been, such a good leader to turn things around. Although I don't think that personally, I don't think U.S. presidents are in a position of power.
No, of course.
I think it was FDR that said presidents are not elected; they're selected.
Yeah.
And
well, Rahm Emanuel, his brother was a terrorist. Rahm Emanuel was his handler. Nat from the chat says that Libya has the highest standard of living in Africa. Unemployment is at 0. Nat from the chat says no IMF or World Trade Organization debt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's 0. Now here is why this is going on. This is why I personally think this is going on. The most alarmingly obvious evidence.
Well, Nile, carry on with this point, and then we'll get back to your article, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is sort of reading off to the article, yeah.
Sure.
Right, so Gaddafi has basically been targeted and demonized because he was in the process of planning something that would turn the world economy upside down and create a drastic power shift in Africa's favor. And that is the creation of a single Islamic Pan-African gold dinar currency. So that's a currency for countries under Islamic law and inter-African countries as well. So that would mean that all products and resources such as oil, natural gas would be traded in gold, not an undervalued fiat paper currency such as the U.S. dollar. system, basically an economic paradigm shift would occur.
Well, I mean, where's the profit for the globalists in that? I mean,
exactly. So
can't have that.
If you don't comply to their foreign-funded sedation, you will die. Basically, that's the message they're trying to send.
Yeah.
So any country under this monetary union would essentially be able to vastly increase their influence in the world. Develop infrastructure, social services that would absolutely trounce the Western equivalent. And it would basically create the first authentically post-colonial model of Africa, if you ask me. It would be a bullet in the head for world central banking and fractional reserve banking, which is banned by Islamic banks, by the way. That's the way of artificially creating money, essentially. It's used by the Federal Reserve.
Sure.
It's basically used to manipulate world markets of all sizes, and it would create a pandemic dump of the U.S. dollar reserves and destabilizing the central bank of Libya, which is a fully owned state-owned entity, as a top priority for the corporations seeking to carve up and suck Libya dry. In the past, global bankers have had zero leverage there because they would have to operate through the central bank itself using Libyan dinar currency. And the gold dinar system, the Islamic Pan-African currency, would allow countries to bypass any of these disingenuous transnational lending institutions which hinder development, like the IMF and the World Bank, that's meant to keep Africa, subservient to the world, the European Union, essentially. And basically would allow countries to take full control of their own economic ambitions without adhering to Ben Bernanke or a paperback global financial order, run by Wall Street and the City of London. I mean, it's that simple. Obviously, you have resources and things like that, but if you ask me, this was really the biggest threat to, the new American century and the new financial world order.
Exactly. I mean, you've grasped the whole situation, the whole picture very well. This is your first article, and I've got to say, you've covered a lot of ground in it, and it's very, very. I mean, you talk about the Islamic Maghreb, the Libyan Islamic fighting groups. You've looked into the Muslim Brotherhood also. What we know about the Muslim Brotherhood is that it was set up by the British 50 years ago at least. So it's an arm of the Anglo-American establishment, really.
Absolutely. Now, basically, what these just to break it down for people a little bit, in the corporate media, Muammar Gaddafi is pretty much portrayed, to the unknown eye, in the same light as other prominent Islamic extremists. So it may be kind of confusing to some people why anti-Gaddafi Islamic militants ideologically oppose his rule. It would seem like they're on the same side. Basically, to summarize what that is, because a lot of people don't know about this, it's basically a history-old battle of true religion versus false religion, as interpreted in the Quran. So basically, the religious Islamic ideology of the Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, Islamic Fighting Group, basically that is under the category of what's like a Wahhabist and Salafi religious sect. It's a more reactionary interpretation of the Quran. It basically seeks to replicate intolerant political and social structures commonly practiced in Saudi Arabia. It's basically a 7th century male-dominated feudalistic Arabian model, and that's what these people would like to install. That's what we're backing. That's what we're told is a democracy movement. And these rebels are paraded across television screens of the world as a pro-democracy force by our corporate-owned media. And the real long-term aspiration there is the installation of an Islamic emirate under the rule of an emir, or basically a dynastic chieftain, independent chieftain.
Right.
So basically a dictator,
Yeah, I mean, if they get rid of one dictator, they'll put in another one. The same as Egypt, same as Afghanistan, and the current guy who's running Afghanistan, his name escapes me, but his brother's one of the main drug dealers there for the heroin, which the American military is guarding the poppy fields. I mean, how in your face can it be And still people
Completely
don't get the whole picture, you know. I've got to say,
the,
yeah,
yeah,
carry
go
on.
on.
No, I was going to say, as a young guy, I mean, you're 22, right? It's encouraging,
Yeah.
it's refreshing. It gives me hope and inspiration that somebody, um, without being offensive, so young as yourself, gets it in such a fantastic way. So, hats off to you, sir.
I appreciate that. I'm
In
just trying to
fact,
do my best.
we're going 24 hours soon. Have a think about it. We'll chat off air sometime. Um, Perhaps you and Patty and myself could have a chat. I mean, you're welcome. There's going to be spots available, and you should really think about a weekly show or something, or a monthly show yourself with us. But we'll talk about it off
Yeah,
air.
absolutely. So do we still have a little bit more time?
We've got about another 15, 20 minutes or so,
Gotcha. Okay.
because there's a lot of
Well,
articles I want to
couple
get
of
over.
other main
Yeah,
main
carry on.
points I want to go over here.
Sure.
Uh, Basically, the reason why there's this true religion, false religion, paradigm happening there. Basically, Gaddafi sees his version of Islam to be incompatible with any dynastic rule or the idea of an emirate, which is why you have that divide between the two. And among the conservatives in the Islamic world, Gaddafi is actually quite controversial because he's essentially reinterpreted the Quran in his own way, and he's criticized the political and social structures of other Muslim societies where basically multi-party democracy has been just corrupted. He's also encouraged women to be involved in the political process and served in the armed forces. He has an entourage of female bodyguards as a way of breaking down taboos in Libyan society.
So he's quite
Among
progressive in his views, really.
yeah,
Mm.
backing up, if you look at what Gaddafi has done and what we're being told about him, I mean, it's completely, it's not consistent in any way. As we've already mentioned, Libya is the most stable country in Africa, and it's a hub for migrant workers all over, Africa.
Well,
Two more things I want to cover real
sure.
quick.
Well, I
Uh,
was just going to mention that there he was a little while ago, standing with Herman van Rompuy, the unelected president of Europe, shaking hands and big smiles and in
we'll
with the
start building.
UN, and then suddenly this shift, so that you can tell when the agenda is kicking into play, when they're suddenly shaking hands and then suddenly they're not shaking hands and they're
Yeah, it's
bombing
been
the crap out
demonized,
of each other.
completely demonized.
Yeah,
And
sorry, carry on.
if you research Lockerbie and the history of CIA drug trafficking, you'll be able to see that basically Gaddafi was extorted, for an incredible amount of money when he himself had nothing to do with Lockerbie, and anything to the contrary is just complete propaganda. However, just wanted to touch real quick on what Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney said when she went to Tripoli to visit the demolished Gaddafi home.
Right.
Now, just get this. I mean, this guy, Gaddafi, he had his youngest son killed, a guy named Saeed al-Arab Gaddafi, with his 3 grandchildren. And there's a photo of it in the article, and it's just heartbreaking. These kids did nothing, but the only thing they're guilty of is being, Gaddafi's grandchildren. And now, they're no longer alive. And basically what Cynthia McKinney said, this is her direct quote, "The strike against his home had everything to do with NATO adopting a policy of targeted assassination and extrajudicial killing, which is clearly illegal. And NATO obviously must be held responsible for this morally bankrupt campaign. It's deliberate bloodshed, and it's the use of military force on civilian targets, and that is a crime against humanity." I mean, you can't deny that.
Well, the drones, American drones, are. I mean, I love America. Don't get me wrong, folks. I'm not anti-American. The American people amaze me, and I've always had a great fondness for their culture and their people. But they're being led by New World Order gangsters from Wall Street and the British arm of the royal families of Europe, and it's an ongoing process. And the drones in Afghanistan constantly raking up war with Pakistan, and China's coming into the fray now and warning off America. They're using bin Laden. They've been bombing Pakistani villages for a couple of years at least, and weddings. So they don't care about the kids. It's just about global domination and bringing the last few countries to bear under the IMF banner.
Like Madeleine Albright said in the one interview, she was asked, with a civilian casualty specifically, I think it was phrased about the deaths of the Iraqi children. Do you think it was worth it for what you've achieved in Iraq? And she said, yes, it was worth it.
Oh yeah, collateral damage. Yeah.
Backwards morals, completely, and it's just so unethical. And one more bit I want to cover here, which
Sure.
I found to be particularly gruesome. These rebels, these Al-Qaeda, Islamist mercenary groups, they're actually committing heinous crimes. They are targeting sub-Saharan African migrant workers, specifically people from Sudan.
The Al Qaeda rebels.
Yes, exactly. So they're the pro-democracy movement. Now, what they're doing, they're beheading, mutilating, and consuming the body parts of captured government soldiers while celebrating and dancing, waving around their body parts. I saw a video on YouTube. I didn't link it to the article because I saw it after it was posted, of the rebels holding up a charred corpse with no head, no arms or legs. It was just a charred torso. And then they proceeded to rip the heart out and stamp on it. I mean, it's insane. It's insane that we're being told that we have to. I can't believe this is going on without widespread revolt. On all fronts. Basically, Libyan rebels have also employed the use of child soldiers. They've been engaged in a campaign of murder, beating, and robbing sub-Saharan African migrant workers, the Chadenians, on the mere suspicion of being mercenaries or informants for Gaddafi. And this is from an oil worker from Turkey who was working in Libya.
Oh, that's very disturbing news.
Yes, exactly. This is what he said. We've had 70 or 80 people from Chad working on our company. They cut them dead with pruning shears and axes, attacking them, saying you're providing troops for Gaddafi. The Sudanese, the Chadians were massacred. We saw it ourselves.
Well, that's their reward, you see. That's their reward. They get to mutilate and enjoy themselves. That's part of their reward for being part of this New World Order get-up. I mean, top.
Absolutely.
I guarantee the top Al Qaeda rebels that are running the show there on the ground know who exactly they're working for. They're working for the CIA, and that's their reward. They're bloodthirsty Satanists, the people who run the CIA. So they probably allow these blood sacrifices and mutilations to be part of the ongoing sacrificial kind of ritual. A lot of war. That's what war is for these globalists. And there they are.
Absolutely.
There they are, prancing around in Bohemian Grove and meeting at Bilderberg now. And if you're in Europe now, make your way to Switzerland. If you're in Germany and Austria, I know Alex Jones is calling for a big demonstration Saturday, but do it. Get there. I can't afford to get there. I looked at the prices, and it's well out of my budget. So if you can get there, at least it may bring more attention to these globalists meeting the way they are, and because this is the result. And if you don't think it's going to find its way home to you, you're mistaken, because that's what the New World Order is. It's tyrannical, it's Luciferian, it's bloodthirsty, and they want the UN are on record saying they want to reduce the world's population by 90%. I'll be getting into that a bit later.
Okay. Well, provided we still have a little bit more time, I just wanted to touch on the fact that these forces that we're being told have the moral high ground, and that their plight is worth paying $500 million a week to maintain. They're being portrayed as a pro-democracy movement. These to weaken Gaddafi's resistance. Eventually, they will assassinate them, and they will be totally discarded once a puppet leader is put into power, and they'll be rightfully labeled as terrorists in a bid to extend, extend the conflict, and destabilize the region, as we've seen in Afghanistan with the original Mujahideen fighters who split into the Taliban and
well put. Yeah, they eat their own, quite literally. I mean, they're eating their own now, and they'll be eaten themselves.
It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
This Brookings Institute report that I have linked on here, it's Libya's test for the new international order.
I see that,
Shed light on a worldview where international laws can be used to usurp foreign countries where the international community sees fit. They claim the moral authority in this issue because they must act on the behalf of the welfare and safety of the Libyan people. However, when one looks on their corporate sponsors list, you see the Rockefeller Foundation, ExxonMobil, Chevron, Shell Oil, Lockheed Martin, and Raytheon, to name a few. That just goes to show these corporate think tanks are the marketing companies for the rape and pillage schemes. Foreign intervention, and it's allowed certain companies to profit tremendously, and it needs to be stopped. And for the record, a lot of people aren't speaking about this, but I actually think Myanmar, Burma, it has all the credentials to be targeted under a fake humanitarian intervention. It's got everything. It's got the military regime. It's got a Western-backed, pro-democracy leader, and it's got
Aung San Suu Kyi,
of resources. That's going to be another piece I'm working on at the moment, just dissecting Myanmar, and I'll be going there. For a month in about 5 days' time. So just tremendous research in this part of the world.
Well, if you want to give a kind of Johnny-on-the-spot report while you're there, if you're allowed to, I know the media is very controlled there, and independent journalists are very controlled, but if you want to give us a brief overview, call in if you can, with an update of how you see the situation growing on the ground there.
Possible, yeah. Skype doesn't work there, so we would have to find another alternative. Skype is banned.
If you have a mobile, we may be able to ring you through the blog talk.
Yeah, I will pick up a number there. But basically, the places that I see being demonized, and being opened up to a front will be Syria, Sudan, Somalia, Myanmar, Venezuela, Iran, perhaps Indonesia as well, if it can be demonized as a hub for Islamic extremism.
And you go on to speak about the agents of industry here in your next paragraph.
The agents of industry.
Yeah, and the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially what the people who are pulling the strings on this. Geopolitically, intervention in Libya is designed to just achieve several long-term objectives: installing compliant political regimes, establishing a military dominance in Africa through AFRICOM, which is the United States Command in Africa, which is located in Eastern Africa and Djibouti. Countries that are in France's sphere of influence: Chad, Niger, Senegal, Mali, Congo, Sierra Leone. France has a lot at stake in this intervention. Basically, it would be the primary loser in Gaddafi's vision of a united Africa, namely just because it has economic leverage in its former colonies, like Central African Republic and other places like that. And it's actually admitted, and I've linked to it in this article I've written, that French intelligence agencies have been on the ground since before, these uprisings have taken place.
Same in Iran. America has been there for a long time, stirring up trouble on the streets, shooting people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's just the closing statement here. I'll read it. This is the last part. Now, payway bombs at the moment are being put onto British jets to drop over Gaddafi's command centers. Those bombs weigh 2 tons each. They're designed to actually target bunkers and underground facilities like that. So
the bunker busters are back in town, eh?
Bunker busters, exactly. Now, NATO has announced that it will extend the intervention for at least another 90 days. So obviously, Barack Obama will and the Guard, I'm probably mispronouncing that, are currently stationed in the Mediterranean, and 400 U.S. Marines have been dispatched to southern Greece to await orders for a ground invasion. And France and Britain begin to launch their warships into the Mediterranean region as well. So basically what I just asked here, when does it end? When does this, selfless pursuit of power end?
It's not supposed to. It's a perpetual war. I remember Rumsfeld saying 100 years war, at least. It's perpetual terror, you see. They've got to keep it going.
Exactly.
They invent enemies if they haven't got any. And Russia says NATO is one step away from ground troops. So that kind of backs it up, what you're saying.
It's certainly going to happen. I mean, once Henry Kissinger calls for it, it's certainly in the books. And just the last part I've written on here is that in Rebuilding America's Defenses, published in 2000 by the Project for the New American Century Group, the same body of work that is called for a new Pearl Harbor. And I'm reading it now, by the way. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's just
yeah.
manual on the theater wars, basically, and the agenda that's laid in that writing, which is co-authored by Donald Rumsfeld among others, is to preserve American hegemony and to fight and decisively win in multiple simultaneous theater wars. So obviously the staunch continuity of the way things are will remain.
Absolutely. Well, it's an incredible article, very accomplished piece of journalism. I thank you for it, sharing it with us tonight. Nile Bowie, currently in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and you'll be going off to Myanmar in a few days' time, and hopefully we'll get an update and some kind of feeling of because I've been following Myanmar and the sort of trials and tribulations of Aung San Suu Kyi. So I want to thank you, Nile Bowie.
No problem. For anyone listening who wants to have a read of that article, my website is nilebowie.com. It's just my name. You can view some of my photography there as well. It's just NILEBOWIE, one word. Just a little shameless self-promotion there.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I meant to mention that earlier. I'm glad you did. It's Nile Bowie. No relation to David, I guess.
No relation.
Okay. Okay, he's probably a globalist as well.
I am related to Jim Bowie, who fought in the Texas Alamo. He created the Bowie knife.
Oh yeah.
I know about. So.
Slicing through the truth with Bowie. I like it. Sorry about that.
Talk to you, Patrick.
Well, thank you for joining us on the Free Truth Show, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you, Nile Bowie. Good night.
Have a good night.
We've got a tune coming up now from Payday Monsanto, and this is Pigs Gone Wild.